Hello, everybody. It's October 28th, 2021. Today's afternoon devotional and Bible study. We'll be reading through the book of Revelation, chapter 13, and Jesus is calling for today. So yesterday, in all of our talks, we talked about, how God will lead us on adventures, and he followed through with that yesterday for sure. An unexpected road trip, and me and my wife had this nice adventure in a forest down a path that she's never been on before. Took a bunch of photos, and it was just a really nice, unexpected time, just kind of really led by God. And it was an adventure that, neither one of us were expecting, but it just seemed like one that he wanted us to take yesterday. So, it was kind of cool to just take him up on that and that theme that was coming up. It's definitely for me yesterday. So I just thought that was cool, a little bit of a follow-up on things that we talked about yesterday, and how, when God invites us in, he invites us in to live life to the fullest, and how he doesn't necessarily take us on the paths that are expected. So with that, let's open up today's devotional, and let's start reading. It's written by Sarah Young. It's written as if Jesus is talking to us. And yes, there was a lot of wind that just almost knocked over the tripod. Gusts of wind outside. What you gonna do? Alright. So without further ado, Jesus is calling for October 28th. Do not expect to be treated fairly in this life. People will say and do hurtful things to you. Things that you don't deserve. When someone mistreats you, try to view it as an opportunity to grow in grace. See how quickly you can forgive the one who has wounded you. Don't be concerned about setting the record straight. Instead of obsessing about other people's opinions of you, keep your focus on me. Ultimately, it is my view of you that counts. As you concentrate on relating to me, remember that I have clothed you in my righteousness and holiness. I see you attired in these radiant garments, which I bought for you with my blood. This also is not fair. It's a pure gift. When others treat you unfairly, remember that my ways with you are much better than fair. My ways are peace and love, which I have poured out into your heart by my Spirit. And that was based on 4 different Bible verses. Remember, anytime I said I'm meaning Jesus in this segment. So the first one is, bear with each other and forgive whatever grievances you may have against one another. Forgive as the Lord forgave you. Colossians 3:13. I delight greatly in the Lord. My soul rejoices in my God. For he has clothed me with garments of salvation and arrayed me in a robe of righteousness. As a bridegroom adorns his head like a priest, and as a bride adorns herself with her jewels. Isaiah 61:10. In him we have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of sins in accordance with the riches of God's grace that he lavished on us with all wisdom and understanding. Ephesians 1:7-8. And then lastly, and hope does not disappoint us, because God has poured out his love into our hearts by the Holy Spirit, whom he has given us. Romans 5, verse 5. And it's so easy, and this actually builds on a lot of what we were talking about yesterday. And it's forgive as the Lord has forgiven you. And he who has been forgiven more. Well, there's a lot of different things that comes to mind with that, but that leads into what we were talking about yesterday. What was the unexpected thing that God did? Or a couple days ago, when he was on the cross, he forgave those that put him there, that were crucifying him, he forgave them, which is amazing. And so did Stephen. And I remember that we prayed about, let us to love and forgive like Jesus and like Stephen, and follow their example, which is very tough to do, but it is so freeing to be able to do it. And it doesn't mean that you set yourself up again to be used and to be taken advantage of in the same way. You can still protect yourself, but forgiveness means I'm not going to hold on to it anymore, and I'm going to forgive you, and we're going to move on. We're going to move past it. I'm not going to dwell on this anymore. I'm releasing you of the guilt, that you might be getting from my side of it. My God's greater. My God's greater. And I reward him with betrayal. So I'm going to reward your betrayal with love and with forgiveness. So now I invite you guys to open up your Bibles to to Revelation chapter 13. Sorry, I do need to take a sip. It's weird when I'm talking to camera, I can feel my mouth kind of getting like okay, you need a drink, otherwise you're not going to be able to speak properly. With what we read about yesterday, it was kind of crazy. It was this vision of like the past and the future, and like Jesus, it was this woman that gave birth to a male son, who the devil was like a dragon and fell down to earth along with 1/3 of the stars, and the devil wanted to destroy the child, but when he couldn't destroy the child, then he turned his eyes on the mother. And in this, there's metaphors to people as trees, as the churches, as lampstands, as stars, as angels, and like there's a lot of really interesting and poetic imagery throughout that whole chapter, as it almost tells us, it gives us a glimpse into the spiritual realm about what happened during the fall, what happened when Lucifer went up against God and he fell and got banished to earth. Gave us that little bit of an insight into that, and Jesus' role in it, and how Lucifer thought that he was claiming that ultimate victory when Jesus finally died on the cross, and God was like, no, thank you for handing me that ultimate victory, redemption, and my plan has now come full cycle. The final sacrifice has been made, and that final sacrifice was myself in Jesus. That final sacrifice was made. And victory now belongs to the child, belongs to Jesus, belongs to the slain lamb, belongs to God. And with all that crazy imagery about the dragon and wiping the stars from heaven, we're going to continue reading with Revelations chapter 13. Join me, won't you? Rah! Alright. The beast out of the sea. Then I saw a beast rising up out of the sea. It had 7 heads and 10 horns, with the 10 crowns on its horns, and written on each head were the names that blasphemed God. This beast looked like a leopard, but it had the feet of a bear and the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave the beast his own power and throne and great authority. I saw one of the heads of the beast seemed wounded beyond recovery, but the fatal wound was healed. The whole world marveled at this miracle and gave allegiance to the beast. They worshipped the dragon for giving the beast such power, and they also worshipped the beast. Who is as great as the beast, they exclaimed. Who is able to fight against him? Then the beast was allowed to speak great blasphemies against God, and he was given authority to do whatever he wanted for 42 months. He spoke terrible words of blaspheme against God, slandering his name and his dwelling, that is, those who dwell in heaven. And the beast was allowed to wage war against God's holy people and to conquer them. And he was given authority to rule over every tribe and people and language and nation. And all the people who belong to this world worship the beast. They are the ones whose names were not written in the book of life that belong to the Lamb who was slaughtered before the world was made. Interesting. Anyone who with ears to hear should listen and understand. Anyone who is destined for prison will be taken to prison. Anyone destined to die by the sword will die by the sword. This means that God's holy people must endure persecution patiently and remain faithful. The beast out of the earth. Then I saw another beast come up out of the earth. He had 2 horns like those of the Lamb, but he spoke with the voice of a dragon. He exercised all the authority of the first beast, and he required all the earth and its people to worship the first beast, whose fatal wound had been healed. He did as astounding miracles, even making fire flash down to the earth from the sky while everyone was watching. And with all the miracles he was allowed to perform on behalf of the first beast, he deceived all the people who belonged to this world. He ordered the people to make a great statue of the first beast, who was fatally wounded and then came back to life. He was then permitted to give life to this statue so that it could speak. Then the statue of the beast commanded that anyone refusing to worship it must die. He required everyone, small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to be given a mark on their right hand or on their forehead. And no one could buy or sell anything without that mark, which was either the name of the beast or the number representing his name. When wisdom is needed here, let the one with understanding solve the meaning of the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. His number is 666. May God add a blessing to the reading of his word. So there's a couple things in here that definitely jumped out at me as interesting. So the first one is in verse 8. Are not written in the book of life before the world was made, the book that belongs to the Lamb who was slaughtered. Okay, so it could be a restructuring of that sentence. So they are the ones whose names were not written in the book of life that belongs to the Lamb who was slaughtered before the world was made, or it could read, or the book of life before the world was made, the book that belongs to the Lamb that was slaughtered. So it's either the book that was slaughtered, or the book that was made beforehand, or the Lamb that was slaughtered beforehand. And that's kind of what it's saying. In some ways, I think I fall into the correction, or like it could also be this, because Jesus died at a certain time, but like God knows and he has his whole plan for the earth and it's all laid out. So I can see the book being made first. Ultimately, I don't think it really matters, but I just thought that was interesting, right? So was this land, like, Jesus was destined to be slaughtered, to be that final sacrifice. So did it happen like before kind of things in time began, or did it happen, it's an interesting thought process on like kind of what was going on in heaven. So it's interesting. But with my mere mortal understanding of things, the book was written and Jesus got slaughtered, but like the Lamb got slaughtered, but the book belongs to the Lamb and he has conquered death. And it sounds like, so this first beast comes up, and I have like a bunch of things that I'm thinking of from the book of Daniel, and so on and so forth in this giant statue that's being made and forced to worship. So I'm not 100% sure if it's referring to this, but if you know of the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they came to this land and they were forced to worship the leader of the land. I want to say an Egyptian pharaoh, but it might not have been an Egyptian pharaoh. But anyways, they were told, okay, you have to worship this person, and they're like, well, we're not going to. And then they got thrown, like, they're like, well, do it or you're going to die, so just take a knee. And they're like, we'll do anything you say except for that. And he's like, fine, then you die, you choose death. Stupid. Yeah, let's throw them into the lion's den, and they're going to get eaten by a lion because they refuse to take a knee. Oh, but what if other people see them not taking the knee, sire? This might cause a bigger redemption, so let's make sure that it's particularly vicious so everyone sees. All right, cool. Well, we'll starve the lions then for a few days, and then they're for sure gonna rip that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego open 10 ways from Sunday. So they kind of make sure that the lions are hungry, send the people in, let the lions out, and there's like a fourth person there. Nothing happens. Or that's David in the lion's den, sorry. That's David. Same thing happened with David. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, it's a big fire. And it's a furnace, and people actually died as they were throwing the people into the furnace because the flames were so hot. And they did not get hurt by the flames, even though they should have. And there was a fourth person in that flame with them, which is crazy, which I think is Jesus. But anyways, this is something that has actually happened before that Jewish people would have heard and understood. And then there's that other aspect with no one could buy or sell anything without this mark of the beast, which I know today this is one of those things that people have taken. They're like, look, if we get a chip in our phone, then we can't buy or sell anything. If we don't get this credit card, then we can't buy or sell anything. And it's always like this verse is one of those ones used to say, like, look, see, all of this is happening because we can't buy or sell anything without this special thing. And like, this is where the world's going. This is where it's going. So we can't buy or sell anything without this mark of the beast. And this mark of the beast is this chip, this whatever. I don't think it's going to be that simple. Oh, it's this chip that I don't have to pledge real allegiance to for my soul. Okay, yeah, well then I don't think that's it. If it's going into my body, I wouldn't be comfortable with it, but I still not 100% sure that's what it would be. But it's this mark on the right hand. Right hand is what you would use to interact and do everything. There's more symbolic than just a literal right hand when it talks about the right hand. The right hand is what you do for work, what you do for everything. It's how you greet people, how you handshake, how you do everything. So the right hand could literally be like, in all of your actions, you'll be representing this. In all your actions. And on your forehead could mean a literal thing on your forehead, or it could just be at like the front of your mind, right? So you're constantly going to be thinking like, oh, am I serving this person right? Am I doing this right? Am I doing that right? It could literally mean just the front of your mind. But it could literally mean, yeah, you have a barcode on your head. That's how we've taken it super, super literal, this vision that we've already discussed, all the different like themes and structures and symbolisms that's going on. So I do think, and I lean into this mark on our right hand or the mark on our forehead, the mark of the beast, which is the mark of man, of a man, and his number is 666. It's something that is almost like a symbolic gesture. So is it going to be something like, okay, yeah, literally I use my debit with my right hand, therefore this counts? I don't know. And so it almost sounds like in what you do, you're going to be doing it kind of in his name. So like, nationalism is a big part of that kind of a mindset. Like everything I do, it's for Canada. I'm Canadian. Everything is Canada. My work is, to make Canada better. Let's make Canada great. And if that's where our focus gets to, then one that's at the front of our mind. That's in like everything that we do. I think it's more leaning towards something like that. And, it gets in the place of God. My debit card is not something that gets in the place of me and God. It's not. So I don't think it's a literal translation. I think it's more metaphorical and symbolic in its imagery. And once again, I could be 100% be wrong. But we've already seen how God has used symbolic imagery throughout this scripture, and this seems like it's written in the exact same way, right? So that's why I don't think it's a literal mark on the right hand. So his number is 666, which also could be written. So I'm going to read 18, then I'm going to read the little direction here. Wisdom is needed here. Let the one with understanding solve the meaning of the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man. His number is 666, or of humanity. Some manuscripts read 616. So, we've been talking so much. It's all about the mark of the beast, and 666 is this demonic evil number, and it represents Satan. Could represent humanity. Could represent a specific person. If I was American, I'd be like, well, it's going to be a 666th president, sir. Like, that would be kind of what I would think, because it'd be something who's a person in power that has, authority or whatever like that. If it's the mark of a man, I'd be thinking something along those lines, or it's going to be our 616th. So I don't know exactly what's going on and what the wisdom would be, but with how things are going right now in the world, I could definitely see something like that happening. Or maybe it's like the 616th update to Apple, and they become our corporate overlords. Who knows? I don't know. But yeah, I don't think it's going to be as in your face and as seen as okay, yeah, this is obviously what the Bible's talking about. It's going to be obvious in retrospect, like it is with Jesus, when we see how Jesus fulfilled so many of the prophets and the prophecies. But at the time, it was being done, and they just had this different expectation. And I kind of think that's a little bit about what's going to happen here. But I am not one with a ton of wisdom, so, maybe talk to somebody else if you want to know what that was. The bigger thing, and the thing that kind of is throughout this, is this mark of the beast that suffers a fatal wound and yet still kind of rises up again. And I think for a large period of time, this was seen as this beast suffers a fatal wound that should have killed it. And it's like this physical wound. And it's like his head gets chopped off, and then it's like, oh wait, what? He's still alive somehow? How did this happen? That would definitely be eye-catching, and especially after what God had just done previously with the two prophets in those two churches, and how they lay dead on the street for so long, and then they raised from the dead in 3 days. Also kind of a callback to Jesus in his time. This fatal beast, this beast that suffers a fatal blow. I can't think of too many Old Testament. I can't think of any Old Testament things I would be referring to at the time. But if it suffers a fatal blow, one, who dealt it that fatal blow? And two, is it going to be a literal fatal blow? I think it could be something like the stock market crashes, like a worldwide recession, just not something that happened in a country or a continent, but a whole worldwide one. And we've seen things like that happen time and time again when it comes to money, whether it's this really, really rich ruler in like ancient times who has so much money when he goes away and he's generous with it, it destabilizes countries because he's just giving too much and the market's being flooded with too much gold, that it all becomes useless because he's just generous with his money. To like what ended up happening in 2008, I think it was, with the stock market crash and the housing market crash. The economy could be a hit to the economy, and it comes back, and people are like, yes, we need to worship this economy. Let's go and make idols and statues to this thing, right? I don't really know, and this could be something that's happening right now or something that will not happen in my lifetime. So it's hard to understand everything, but it's good to know what it does say and to know how it says it. So is there going to be this literal beast with 6 heads? I doubt it, because I think we'd be able to call it out. I think it's going to happen in a way that we don't notice, and it's going to be really easy to convince even the smartest, even the most well-read of us are going to have a weakness to the trickery that's going on. Is it even going to be a real fatal blow, or is it just going to be, Lucifer masquerading it as something, and this like little fake show of power to demonstrate, look at how powerful I am, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me, even though really I'm just doing a magic trick that, it's a sleight of hand thing. I think that's a really strong possibility as well. So it's good to know what's going on and to not just believe everything that is being talked to us, to get into the Word and to know, there's going to be some really well-meaning people that are going to be misled. And when I read through Revelations, I think Revelations is about what has happened, what is happening, and what will happen. It's definitely a past, present, and future type of apocalyptic reading. So in our lives, there's going to be these times when we give things to the mark of humanity, when we give things to the mark of the beast. I would argue that a lot of conservatism falls right into that line, and a lot of liberalism falls right in that line. The council culture of the right and left fall right into those lines, where it becomes a thing on the forefront of our minds instead of Jesus. We get these causes and we put them even before God, while saying, yes, this cause is for Christ. And we put these political figures, leaders, bosses, pastors in these roles trying to follow God, but we put them actually in the place of God or in the place of devil, and we miss the real threat. The threat that has been manipulating us and guiding us and getting us to turn away from the real important things. So the big takeaway from this is, one, yes, God will lead us on adventures unexpected, like we talked about yesterday. But don't put someone else in front of God. Stay focused on Christ. No matter what fantastical thing you're seeing around you, no matter what fantastical stuff you're seeing on the news, no matter how righteous this cause seems, don't let it take the place of God in your life. No matter how charismatic the leader is, no matter how much you agree with the leader, don't let them take the place of God. And right now there are a ton of people trying to take that place in your life. From celebrities to corporate sponsorship, corporations, political sides, it's hard. It's hard today. And I see it getting worse. It's hard today in our culture, in our environment, in our mindsets. And it is going to be something that gets worse. So we need to practice on looking at God now, especially as we age. It's going to be more difficult, and it's going to be easier to fall into a lot of these traps. Let's pray. AJC, awesome Jesus Christ, I thank you for all the ways that you love us, you bless us, you guide us, and you direct us. Today we read this fantastical part of John's vision. This part that has a lot of warnings in it that are hard to really understand. We can see how these types of things happened in the past, how these things happened throughout the Hebrew scriptures, throughout the Old Testament. And we can see how they're happening now in our daily lives as we're, told to pick this side or that side, and it's not, let's just follow Jesus and who represents you the best. Or we're chose, we get into these camps about, PlayStation or Xbox, Coke or Pepsi, AEW or WWE. These are all ones that, I've fallen into those camps, a lot when I was young, and even still today. There's these things that can occupy our minds and get us passionate about, and causes that we can get passionate about. But let us not have those things, even the good ones, take the place of you in our lives. Let us stay focused on you, despite all the fantastical things going on. When the beast rises and this fatal wound happens, let us not confuse him with you. Let us not confuse the beast with you, and things are going to get tough. It's going to be hard to buy or sell anything without playing in the system a little bit. And when we get hungry and thirsty and desperate and things get hard, help us to stay faithful and focusing on you. We've read how things like this have happened before throughout history, that people get hungry. I just was listening to something the other day about how in World War II, British kids didn't think bananas were real because of the war. Things are going to get tough. We won't be able to buy or sell things because it's going to be tough. We can't do it really without the mark of the beast, without the mark of humanity. So there's a chance that we might have to live in that world in order to have this, but let us not lose focus on you. Help us to stay focused on you, Lord, to never sell our soul, because I've already freely given it to you. It was yours to begin with. Thank you for creating us, for loving us, for not abandoning us, for forgiving us. Every time we reward you with betrayal, Lord, you forgive us. You forgive me. Thank you, Lord. Thank you. All right. Well, have a fantastic day. Once again, Revelations, it gets crazy. It's hard to know exactly what's going on all the time. But thank you guys for joining. Have a fantastic day. I look forward to jumping in to the craziness even more tomorrow with chapter 14. But until then, have a fantastic day. God bless.